recording. Alright. So, alright, there's no one here, but I'm still going to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to we thank you for tuning into the GFL podcast. As I'm the Cowboy Crab, and today, well, at the time of recording this today, Week 10 schedule has been officially announced. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recap Week 9, as it was probably the longest week in this league's history, and then we will go into Week 10 schedule, and I will give some predictions on some games. We're going to start with college, and then we'll go to NFL for Week 9, and then we'll do Week 10 starting in college and Week 9 and Week 10 for predictions and stuff. I think you know how it works at this point. So we are going to start with college recap of Week 9. It was a very long week, but let's take a look at the only scores that I have available to me. I'm going to start at the bottom and I'll work my way up. We have Virginia Tech get a forfeit win over Oregon. Wisconsin get a forfeit win over Georgia. Auburn get a forfeit win over Iowa. Oklahoma get a forfeit win over Baylor. Cincinnati get a forfeit win over Boise State. Washington get a forfeit win over Pitt. Ole Miss wins 52-18 over Minnesota. Tennessee gets a forfeit win over Michigan State. South Carolina gets a forfeit win over TCU. Florida State wins 41-20. LSU gets a forfeit win over Army, and Stanford wins 69-20 over Maryland. South Carolina gets a forfeit win over TCU. And I said that game. Alright. Michigan got a forfeit win over Kentucky. And Arkansas won 46-7. There should be more games when we check statistics, maybe their results for other games. Miami got a forfeit win over Florida. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Moving on to NFL. We'll start at the bottom as usual. You should know how the schedule works for this. At this point, Minnesota gets a forfeit win over Carolina. New Orleans gets a forfeit win over Arizona. Dang, that was definitely the game that everyone was looking forward to. We didn't even get to see it. Tennessee got a forfeit win over Indianapolis. Another big primetime game and a forfeit, really? Miami got a forfeit win over the Raiders. Carolina got a forfeit win over Minnesota. Cincinnati won 53-46. Dallas got a forfeit win over San Francisco. Air Force got a forfeit win over Oklahoma State. Notre Dame got a forfeit win over Navy. Arizona State beat the Oilers 21-15. Cleveland won 41-31 over Detroit. Pittsburgh got a forfeit win over Jacksonville. New England got a forfeit win over the LA Rams. And lastly, the Seattle Seahawks got a 61-21 win over Philadelphia. At the time, it was Cyclones and Raptors, but then we switched back. So, lots and lots of forfeits. In my honest opinion, that is not a good thing, as it shows inactivity and not being ready to play. It's my opinion, but I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. But we will move on to college week 10, and for the schedule that just got announced. We will start at the bottom of the schedule and work our way up, as usual. So, at the bottom, South Carolina plays Kentucky, Louisville plays UCLA, Michigan plays Purdue, Arkansas plays TCU. Those are your D20 to D21 games. D18 to D19. Maryland versus Ole Miss, Mississippi State versus West Virginia, Baylor versus Minnesota, and Coastal Carolina versus Wake Forest. Moving on to D16 and D17 games. You have Iowa State and Texas A&M. You have Texas and Stanford. Iowa plays Oklahoma. And Pitt plays Utah. Jesus Christ. Anyways, moving on. Moving on. D13 versus D15. Oh, that's why. Oh, okay. Virginia Tech plays Florida State. USC plays Washington. Florida plays Penn State. Iowa State plays Auburn. Moving on to D12 and D14, you have North Carolina plays Miami. Michigan State plays Oregon. Georgia versus Alabama. And Boise State versus BYU. And your final college games of the week. Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona State, Clemson, LSU versus Wisconsin, and Notre Dame versus Tennessee. And now your NFL games for Week 10. Start at the bottom. You should know how this works at this point. I probably shouldn't say it. Dallas versus New York versus the Jets. San Francisco versus Atlanta. Tampa versus Arizona. Oh boy, have the mighty have fallen in the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants play the Bills. D6 versus D7. Army plays Denver. Seattle plays Navy. They won last week. Weren't they like D1 or something? Why are they? I'm not gonna question it. Kansas City plays the Oilers. Baltimore plays Air Force. D4 and D5. Green Bay plays Cincinnati. Washington plays the Chargers. Chicago plays Vegas. Miami plays the Texans. D2. New England plays Detroit. Carolina plays Jacksonville. Pittsburgh plays Minnesota. And Cleveland plays the Rams. And your primetime games for this week. New Orleans Saints versus the Indianapolis Colts. And the Tennessee Titans versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Very interesting upcoming Week 10 as we should be getting close to the playoffs soon. And so, wrapping up this GFL podcast, I'm the Cowboy Crab. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you all next time. Goodbye.